Hello everybody, welcome to the JavaScript course. In this video, I'm going to discuss importing and exporting modules, and this is the first video about importing and exporting. In this first part, I'm going to tell you the way to export variables, constants, functions, classes from the modules. And when we want to import the modules, we can import them by considering the path of the modules correctly, or at the same time, we don't always need to import all the things from a module. We can select some of the variables or functions, or we can just select all the things from the module. And I have to also tell you that variables are actually invisible across modules. Now, let us see the HTML file first. The HTML file is rather simple. I have a title here and a heading. And if you want to import some modules, I have to link my JavaScript file in some way. So let me tell you the way. Okay, this statement wants to tell you that I want to link my HTML file to a JavaScript file called my script.js, which is treated as a module. So if the JavaScript file that I'm linking to is a module, I have to say type equals module here before I tell the source of my JavaScript file. So this is the thing we have to consider when we import some modules, which is known as an external script. Okay, so let me go to the JavaScript file now. In order for me to use the strict mode, I have to say use strict on the first line of the JavaScript file that I want to link to the HTML file in the form of a module. Okay, so let me tell you something about modules. Actually, we can import some functions from another file, which is a JavaScript file ending with JS as the extension. So suppose I now have a JavaScript file called my exports.js. Now I have already got some functions in my JavaScript file called my exports.js. So we can treat the file as a module because a module is just an ordinary JavaScript file. And now I want to export those functions to the other JavaScript file called my script.js shown here. And if I do the exporting, then my JavaScript.js file is able to make use of those functions to do other tasks. So suppose now I have those functions. How can I do the exporting? Let me show you my way. So if I want to export two functions called getSum and getDifference, I can do it in this approach. I use the keyword called export, and then I have to include the function names with a pair of curly brackets, and then I end the statement with a semicolon. Then I'm able to export those two functions so that other files that would import these functions can actually use them directly. In addition to using the function name as the export method, I can also change the name to export. So how can I do so? Let me show you my way. Now I have a function called getProduct, and if I want to change its name when I do the exporting, I can use the keyword as to help me change the name. So I export a given function as another name. So I have this format. In this case, I can just use prod as the name to replace the getProduct function. Okay. Of course, I can just export one function in another approach like this one. Okay, if I do so, I just export this getQuotient function to the outside so that when other JavaScript files need to import this function, the new JavaScript file can just use the function directly. So we can see that there are some ways to export some functions. We can put them together, or we can change the name as well. Or, of course, we can just import one function at a time. So we have already set up the modules for exporting some functions. So let me save it first. And how can another JavaScript file import them? Let me show you my way now. Before doing so, I have to tell you some ideas of accessing this particular JavaScript file. It is usually more convenient to use relative path to the current JavaScript file. So the current JavaScript file is called my script.js, which is stored in the JS folder. And you can see that my export.js is also storing in the same file location. So if we want to access my export.js file, we have to make sure that we can locate it correctly. So it is usually possible to use the relative path to locate the file. And it is especially helpful when we want to move the whole folder to other locations later on. So I'm going to tell you the way to do the relative path. So we have to consider two possible commands. When we have two dots shown here, I can go up one level. And when I have a dot followed by a slash, I'm able to get the present working directory called pwd. So actually, I'm going to use these two approaches to access the same module called my export.js. So let me show you my first approach. I already know that my export.js is already in the same directory as my javascript.js as shown in the file hierarchy on the left-hand side. So if that's the case, I can just use the same working directory. Okay, so if I want to get some function from my export.js, I can just notice that my export.js is the same folder as the current location of my javascript.js file. So I can just use the present working directory by indicating it using the period together with the slash to just locate the same folder, actually, which is the JS folder. Okay, so this is one approach. So the getSome function is already obtained because it is already exported from my export.js using the export keyword. Okay, so I'm trying to show you another approach to access the same file location. So actually we can go up one level and then we can go back to the current working directory. So the upper level is just the import export1 folder, and when I go into one level deeper, I'm just able to get back to my JS folder. So it is just like stepping up followed by stepping down. Okay, so let us see how we can do it. Okay, you can see that I can import the getDifference function from my export.js file. So you can see that I have another approach of getting this file. So I go up one level to the import export1 folder, and then when I access this folder, I'm able to go one level deeper by turning back to my JS folder. So I use JS folder name here, and then in this folder I'm able to access back my export.js file. Okay, so we have two approaches to get the same file. The first one is by using this same working directory called pwd, and the second one is going up by one level followed by going down by one level. Okay. Last time we talked about the way to change the function name as we export. So now I can try to use this exported name to do the import. So let me show you my way. So you can see that I just used the prod, okay, which is the name of my getPutter function when I do the export. So I'm able to access this exported function by considering my xbox.js file. Okay. So I can also import a function and then I can change its name after the import. So how can we do so? Let me show you my way. So after the usual import, I can change the name by using the s keyword. So the getQuotient function has become QUOT, okay, which will be different from the original function name. And when I do so, I have to include the my xbox.js file location as usual. So now we have already imported 4 functions of handling arithmetic calculations. So let's see how we can make use of these exported functions to do the calculation. So now I can call the getSum function, and in principle I'm able to show the function content. Let me save all of them and reload the page. You can see that I'm unable to get any result coming from the reloading action. The reason is that for Visual Studio Code, in order for me to test the importing and exporting capabilities, we have to install something else, which is called, shown here, called Live Server. In order for me to play with the importing and exporting on VS Code, I have to install Live Server first. So let me install it now. Okay, it is already installed. So after installing the Live Server, I'm able to see the effect. How can I do so? Let me go back to the HTML file. And when I right click, I'm able to see Open with Live Server. So when I do so, I'm able to see that the server is started, and you can see that my content of the getSum function is already shown up here. Okay, so when I call the getSum function without any parameters, I'm able to see the function content. Okay, so how about trying other things like, for example, really running the function by giving some inputs to it? Let me show you my way. Let me try. Save. Okay, when you save it, I don't really need to reload the page. I'm already able to see that number 12 is coming up, which is the function result coming from the getSum method by adding 4 and 8 together. Okay. So you can see that the function is already able to be exported, and I'm able to import this function in my script.js file. So let me try to attempt all other functions already imported. Save. Okay, after the saving, I'm able to see the function content as usual. When I save it, I'm able to see number 6 coming up because it is the value up after calling the getDifference function. Okay. Now here I use the exported new name called prod shown here. So now prod becomes the function name used in my my script.js file. Save. You can see that the function content is shown up here in the alert window. So when I find out the product, I just use the prod name instead of the original function name in the my xbox.js. Okay, so I don't use getProduct. Instead, in my my script.js, I use prod instead. Save. Okay, you can see number 14 coming up, which is the product of 7 and 2. Now here I try to use my new name after doing the import. So this is the import result, and I change the imported function as another name called QUOT, and I can use it directly in my script.js file. save. You can see that the get function content is showing up in the alert window. Save. You can see that number 4 has come out because it is the quotient of 8 and 2. So when I divide 8 by 2, I'm able to get the quotient of 4. So QUOT is just the new name after doing the import. Okay. So in addition to exporting functions, I can export other things. I can export some individual contents like a variable, a constant, and a class. So let me try to do it. For example, if I want to export a variable, I can use the export keyword. After that, I just create my own variable as usual by using the let keyword. So now I have a constant which is a string called color, and the content of the color is just a string called red. Now I export a certain class called car, and the class includes the constructor, and I'm going to export all these 3 things to my script.js. So on this my script.js file, I need to import these individual contents. And how can I do so? Let me show you my way here. I can just import the 2 variables as usual. Price and car are included in the pair of curly brackets. And after that, I can try to call the values obtained by the import. So you can see that I treat price and color as contained in my script.js already, because I have already imported them from my exports.js. So let me try to save all the things. I want to save this as well. Save. So after saving all the things, I'm able to see that the price is just 20 because it is already obtained from the exported value of 20 from the my exports.js. And you can see that the color here is simply red because it is a variable obtained from the export keyword used in the my exports.js. Okay, so this constant called color can be directly used by the my script.js after the import shown here. Okay, so how about trying the exported class called car? Let me show you my way now. Okay, in order for me to import a class, I just use the exported class name, and then I can just use this exported class as usual. So I let a new object called car1 by using the constructor of the car class, which is already exported using the export keyword. Okay, and I can show the make directly because the make is already input in the constructor. So let me save all. And you can see that the make is already printed out as Toyota shown here. So after the importing, you can use it as usual. Okay, that is the major idea of the use of import keyword together with the export keyword. Okay, so I'm trying to show you something about the importing as well. So actually, we don't always need to import every single content in an import statement. So we can actually export all the things in just one line. So how can I do so? I can show you another example. So now I have a certain file called my export2.js, and now I have 3 variables. So in this file, I have 3 variables, and I'm trying to export all these 3 variables. On line number 2, I include the variables A, B, and C on one line, and then I use the export keyword. Okay, So when I do so, I'm trying to export all these 3 variables. And how can I import these exported variables? Let me show you my way here. I can actually add an object name, and I can use this object name to specify the variables in the form of the key value pairs. So it's a bit abstract. Let me try to use an example. So suppose I've already my exports2.js file, and now I try to type something. Now I have a statement shown here. Import an asterisk. An asterisk here means everything. I want to import everything as fast, VARS here. So this is an object I add to include all the exported variables. Okay, and of course I have to indicate the path of my JS file to export the variables shown here. And after that I have to type something to really access those variables stored in this object called fast. Okay, I have an object called fast which stores all the variables exported, and then I can use a dot to indicate each of the variables in the object. So I can use vars.a, vars.b, and vars.c to indicate the content exported. Okay, so let me try to show it for you. Save. You can see that I can get 1, 2, and 3 from the alert window, because this alert window is going to show the content of the object obtained after the import. Okay, so remember that we use an asterisk to import everything from a certain JavaScript file. Okay. Okay, the final thing in this video is to talk about some important thing about import and export. We can actually have internal scripts specified as module type rather than using another JS file to do the import and export. And we have to notice that the variables in a script are invisible to another module. So how can I set up a module on the HTML file? Let me show you my approach for now. Okay, this is already a simple approach of setting up a module on the HTML file without relying on an external JavaScript file. So here I let a variable called number, and the number is 3. And this is already a module. And in this module, the number can be used immediately. But when we consider another script which is treated as a module type, we have to notice that the variables in a module cannot be transferred to another module. So let me try to include another module. Okay, we can set up a number here, but actually this number is already unknown to the outside script. So this number shown in the previous script, which is of module type, can already not allowed to be used in another outside module. So let me try to run the HTML file, save, save, and you can see that when I open a live server, you cannot see the value 3 coming out from the alert window, including the whole sentence, because currently this number is simply an unknown variable. So for this unknown variable, we can do nothing to show it up. So we can be sure that the number variable is not known in the current script. So we can have no output on the screen, because this number variable is contained in another script which is of module type. And once a variable is in another module type, it cannot be used in my current module type that I'm concerned about. So this is something we have to consider. That's why people usually use an external JavaScript file to handle the variables more conveniently, without considering the scope of a variable in different scripts. Okay. So this video has already talked about many things about importing and exporting variables. The principle is like this. We have to create some variables like these things. The variables can be functions, constants, a class, and so on. And after that, we have to make use of the export keyword. And sometimes we can change the name of the content to be exported. And after that, another JavaScript file is going to import those exported functions or variables and so on by considering the relative path to the JavaScript files that contain the exported variables. Okay, and when we do so, we can just use the name as usual, just like this name is representing some content, some variables or functions defined in the current JavaScript file. And after that, we can use them as usual. And sometimes we can just import everything from a module by using the asterisk, like this one here. Okay, so when we include the import asterisk command, we can import everything as an object that stores all the content shown in the file that contains the exported variables. Okay. And one more thing to consider is that for JavaScript, the modules are isolated from each other. So this module has a number called 3, but this number can never be used by another outside module. Okay, so when we consider the modules, we have to make sure that all the variables are contained in the same modules. Otherwise, variables cannot be used across modules. This is the end of the video. If you have any questions about my video, please leave your questions on the comment section below the video. If you like this video, please give me a like and please subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching.